to talk about fear and how we can go from fear to being fearless, right? So, how many of you here would like to be fearless? Yeah, me too. All right. So, I wanted to start off by asking everybody what frightens you? What are you scared of? What are you scared of?
You.
You're scared of me? Well, I can't help you there, Prabhu. Anything else?
I don't know.
You don't know? How about you, Sean? What are you scared of?
Practically speaking, because I love them also at rattlesnakes.
Rattlesnakes, yeah.
And not making use of my time. That's becoming a
Yeah. I share that fear, sure. And rattlesnakes too. How about you, Thomas? Any fears?
I'll need to circle back. So.
Okay. Omar, do you have anything?
Not sure. Yeah, circle back.
Okay. How about you, Chris?
Probably looking stupid.
Looking stupid, yeah. That's a good one. I have that fear also. Yeah. Do you have any fears?
Oh, sure.
Any that you want to share? You don't have to. You don't have to if you don't want.
I definitely don't like arachnids.
Yeah, spiders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Many of them.
Yeah. That's funny because I was actually going to bring that up because that used to be one of my big fears, and it's subdued in recent times. How about you? You seen it? Prabhu?
Maya.
Maya. Okay, that's a good fear. Yeah. How about you, Garanga?
Hurting others.
Hurting others. Yeah. Me too. I have that one too. What about you?
An empty bank account.
Empty bank account. Yeah, that's a fear. Lots of people share that one. I've known nothing else, so I'm no longer scared of that.
You're desensitized.
Yeah. How about you?
Physically, like spiders. I'm gonna check that one. Then, like metaphorically, not being able to like handle pressure.
Yeah.
You've got a lot on your plate and it doesn't come out.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. That's a good one. How about you?
A lot of things come to mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. What people think. I'm learning in this moment public speaking.
Yeah. Yeah. Public speaking used to be one of my fears too, and still from time to time shows up, but mostly over it.
You're doing great.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else? How about you? What are you afraid of?
Vaishnava
Aparad. Okay. Yeah. That's a good thing to be afraid of. All right.
What is Thomas?
Yeah. Thomas.
offending or disappointing.
Offending or disappointing people. Yeah, me too. All right. Sean, you had one?
Sorry, it's a scratch.
It's like an auction. I just see you make a twitch and I'm like, oh, sold. Yeah.
What about you?
So yeah, I also have a fear of, disappointing others. I have a fear of Vaishnava Aparad for sure. That's making offenses to devotees. I used to have a fear of spiders, but I don't anymore, which is, I ponder that sometimes. Like, wow, that's really interesting. I don't. So yeah, I mean, those are some of mine. So the top 3 fears that Americans had in 2023 was government corruption, right? Economic collapse, and nuclear war, right? Those are pretty good fears to have, I think. Yes.
Surprised nuclear war's back on.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, that was a big deal. We used to do drills.
Yeah.
Me
Me too.
Yeah, it's coming back.
It's nice to see it come back.
What goes around comes around. Yeah, you had to get under the desk, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, me
Black Eyes
too.
are gonna help you.
Yeah, that's. I think my generation was like among the last to have to do that, to get under the desk for the drill. We had 2. Like when you're in school, you have a fire drill and they have like some kind of alarm go off, right? But when I was in school, there was 2 different alarms. One was the fire drill alarm and one was the nuclear attack alarm. And so if it was a fire drill, you went outside. And if it was a nuclear attack alarm, you went under your desk. Yeah, because that would help, yes, right? Yeah.
We had bomb shelters too in people's houses. Did you know anyone that had bomb shelters?
Yeah, we didn't have bomb shelters. We just had our desks. Okay. And then this year, top 3 fears for 2025 is economic uncertainty, right? People are really freaked out about these tariffs. Technology, specifically AI, people are very concerned about AI and where is that going to lead? And then geopolitical instability, so war, basically. People are still afraid of war. So, and then on social media, I see so many fears, people that have so many fears. Like most of the posts that I see on social media are based in one way or another in fear, right? Sometimes people are afraid that the country is being overrun by immigrants and criminals, right? I see this a lot. Then I see people that are fearing that people, are illegally being deported, right? See that a lot. I see people afraid of fascism, right? And then people are afraid of losing their cultural significance or their cultural superiority, right? We see that. And people are fearing losing their rights, right? That's another big one. Fear of corruption, fear of the mainstream media selling you lies, right? We see so many conspiracy theories are out there, right? And a lot of them are very fear-based, right? Then fear of the medical community, right? Being corrupt. That's a big one for a lot of people. But also something as benign as like those beauty ads, right? Like ads for, makeup or shampoo or whatever, diet pills, whatever it is. Most of those are fear-based, right? Oh, people won't like you unless you're, have this lipstick. That's not their exact words, but that's what the subliminal message is, right? If I don't have beauty, then people aren't going to like me. My life isn't going to be successful. And people spend billions of dollars based on the fear of losing their beauty, right? They get plastic surgery, they buy so many beauty products. And that's because there's this fear that people aren't going to like me if I look old, my spouse is going to leave me, I'm not going to get that promotion at work, people are going to reject me. These are all just kind of basic fears. And then we have one of the most universal fears, which is fear of loss of loved ones, money, status, skills, things. There's FOMO, right? Fear of missing out, right? That's a big one for a lot of people. You ever have that, Sean?
Chronically.
Chronically, yeah.
I think there's a Taylor Swift gets together.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you, sometimes, living at the temple, it can be, the schedule's a little demanding, right? And sometimes, we get up very early to go to Mangal Arti and sing and dance in front of the deities. And sometimes that can be a little difficult, although now I'm used to it. But I remember in the earlier days when I first moved in, there was some days that I didn't really feel like getting up and going, but I went because I had FOMO. I had fear of missing out. I was like, what am I going to miss? Something's going to happen. I'm going to miss it, right? And so I would get up and I would go, right? So maybe not the best motivation to go, but it got me to go, right? So, okay. And another big one, what will the neighbors think, right? What will my peers think? What will my friends think? That's a big fear people have. And fear of failure, fear of losing control, and finally, fear of death, right? That's the big one, fear of death. So where do you think all this fear comes from? Yes?
I was going to say one other fear that haunts, I think, most people is fear of not getting what they want.
Yeah, not getting what you want.
Like they all have to make plans and they become scared because there's always there's that absolute potentiality that will not go according to plan.
Yeah. What is it? The best laid plans of mice and men, right? So we can make all the plans we want, that doesn't mean that they're going to work out. All right. So where do you think all these fears come from? Does anybody have an idea?
Ignorant.
Ignorance. Okay. Yeah. Attachment. Yeah. Good. How about you, Omar? I feel like you have something to say.
Probably comes from Krishna since he's the source of anything that exists.
Okay. Well, of course, but I feel like it's not exactly cheating, but
I say that fear, fearlessness, and source of all these things.
Sometimes we get it from our parents or our
Yeah.
family and upbringing, and we might be carrying it from another life, so we might have drowned in another life, and that's why we fear water.
yeah, yeah. I have a irrational fear of dams. I don't know where that came from. All right, and I've talked with Kirtaneshwara about that. The only thing I can surmise, and what I kind of think, is that I had died in the process of building a dam in a past life. Yeah.
Like a sucker?
Yeah. I mean, maybe I was a beaver, but in my mind, it's actually like a concrete dam. Now he's understanding me better.
Very auspicious speaker.
Yeah. No wonder I have these two teeth sticking out. Oh gosh. Okay. So, anybody else want to have a guess of what the root of all these fears are?
Maybe the attachment to the illusion.
The attachment to the illusion. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's yeah. You said the attachment. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So yeah, you guys are right on the money. It says in the Srimad Bhagavatam in the 11th canto, it says fear arises when a living entity misidentifies himself as the material body because of absorption in the external illusory energy of the Lord. When the living entity thus turns away from the Supreme Lord, he also forgets his own constitutional position as a servant of the Lord. Right? So there you go. Fear comes from identifying as the material body and absorption in that illusory energy. So part of that. So yeah, because we're identifying with our material body instead of that is why we have all these fears. So what does fear do to us? What does it do to us? You ready? What does fear do? Yeah, Hugo.
It disorients, confuses our thinking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bewilders our intelligence.
I mean, just physically, like it increases our heart rate, our blood pressure, accelerates our breathing. It puts us in a fight or flight mode, right? It can cause sweating, nausea, muscle tension, reduce blood flow to your digestive system, and then, like you're saying, cause impaired cognitive function, right? We need that. We need that cognitive function, right? Everybody needs that. Increased anxiety, difficulty sleeping, feeling overwhelmed, negative thoughts, right? It can also compromise your immune system, right? So an increased risk of physical health problems. And long-term stress like this can cause all kinds of problems like high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, digestive issues, anxiety disorders, depression, suicidal thoughts, all this stuff, all because of fear, right? I mean, fear is huge. So now think about all those health issues that our society's facing right now. I mean, like we see, like there's a mental health crisis, right? There's heart disease is a huge crisis, right? I mean, basically all those things that we just said are huge crises in our society right now.
Even war, all the wars are fear-based.
What's that?
All the wars going on in the world are fear-based.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, look at what fear is doing to us. Think about the news cycle. It's always cracked me up. You know, the news cycle says, something like, a new study shows that this common household item is killing you. Watch tonight at 11, right? You're like, oh my gosh, well, what is it? You're like, what's killing me? Oh my gosh.
Your entire house.
Right? Or tune in at 6 to find the killer lurking in your pantry. Right? Seen those. Or illegal immigrants are taking your jobs. Right? You see that? Or killer on the loose, third victim in 2 months. Right? I mean, these are all these headlines. They cause fear. But the fact remains that most of us are actually worrying and in fear about things that will never actually happen to us, right? And that fear, it's just kind of like a noose. It's just strangling us. It's just getting tighter and tighter. So this fear not only destroys our peace, but it pits us against one another, right? You know that there's a great precept of war, right? Is divide and conquer, right? If you divide, keep the people divided, then they can't get too strong, right? It's easy to conquer them. So now you're not able, because of this fear, you're not able to see the humanity of your neighbor, and you're stuck in survival mode, and you've got all these kind of physical problems, these mental problems because of this fear. And then this allows you to become easily manipulated by the media, by the government, by the entertainment industry, tricks you into becoming a good consumer, right? Let's buy all this stuff. We don't need it, right? But it makes us feel better for a little bit of time. It kind of tamps down that fear. I'm not thinking about it. Now I'm thinking about, you know, my new gadget or my new shirt or whatever it is. And so you just kind of worry about gratifying your senses. And really that becomes your whole life, right? And for most people, this means you're doing whatever you can do to feel better. And for most people, this means like getting a good job, you know, maybe getting a nice place to live, a nice mate, having a nice house, nice car, you know, having good food, having a family, having some sex life, maybe intoxication. And in that way, I can keep the fear at bay, right? I can sort of keep the fear at bay because I'm sort of distracting myself with all these other things. So the biggest fear for most people is death. And for us, death and fear are actually unnatural for us because we're actually eternal spirit souls that are full of bliss and knowledge, right? The only problem is that we're covered over with these layers of illusion that make us think that we're our bodies. So in his purport to Srimad Bhagavatam 3:26-16, Srila Prabhupada says, it is also stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, matter is the secondary manifestation of spirit. For matter is produced from spirit, just as the material elements described are caused by the Supreme Lord or the Supreme Spirit, the body is also a product of the spirit soul. Therefore, the material body is called Dvitya, or the second. One who is absorbed in this second element or second exhibition of the spirit is afraid of death. We are spirit souls, different from the material body, and we belong to the eternal blissful spiritual world. But for some reason, we have fallen into this world of matter, which is totally foreign to us. Here we have developed a spirit of rebellious independence, averse to the service of God, Krishna. This has put us in a miserable situation. We are orphans who have been left to fend for ourselves. We face fear at every step of life to some degree or another. Right? All right. So because of our absorption in this material energy, that's what makes us afraid of death. But there's something that we need to realize, and that's actually we don't die, right? Our bodies die, but our souls are, which is what we are the soul. That's what goes on. So in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, it says, never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. That means us. Never was there a time that Sean didn't exist. Yeah. And never will there be a time that you cease to be. Right. And then the Bhagavad Gita continues, as the embodied soul continually passes in this body from boyhood or girlhood, to youth, to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death, and a sober person is not bewildered by such a change. Later in chapter 2, it says, "For the soul there is neither birth nor death at any time. He has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain." So there we have 3 verses that's proclaiming that we don't die, right? And so when you realize that, it kind of takes the sting out of a lot of fear, right? Because so much of our fear is based on the fact that one day we're going to die. Now, that doesn't mean just like walk across the street without looking, okay? Because we still have to use our intelligence, right? Okay, there's a car coming, I better not jump out in front of it. Because, yeah, our body will die and we'll move on to another body. But that's kind of a waste if we just like walk out in front of a car and get hit. Okay, so we've established that fear is everywhere, right? We've established that we're not our bodies, right? And that we're eternal spirit souls full of knowledge and bliss. So would you like to have some bliss?
Oh, sure.
Okay. All right, good. What about you? No, you don't want any? All right, take him off the list, okay? I would like some bliss, and I think most of us would also like to have some bliss. All right, so how do we go from all that fear to becoming fearless? Who knows? Anybody? Surrender to Krishna, yeah. Very good. All right, so in the 4th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, by practicing Bhagavad Bhakti Yoga, one becomes fearless and joyful. Unless one becomes fearless and joyful, he cannot understand the science of God. When one sees the lotus feet of the Lord, all kinds of doubts and fears within the heart are vanquished. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that in order to make spiritual progress, one must become fearless. Fearfulness is the result of material involvement. It is also said in Srimad Bhagavatam, fearfulness is a creation of the bodily conception of life. As long as one is absorbed in the thought that he is this material body, he is fearful. And as soon as one is freed from this material conception, he becomes Brahma Bhuta, or self-realized, and immediately becomes fearless. Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma. Without being fearless, one cannot be joyful. The bhaktas, the devotees, are fearless and always joyful because they are constantly engaged in the service of the lotus feet of the Lord. So, I mean, that sounds pretty nice, right? Who wouldn't want to be joyful all the time? I wasn't going to bring this up, but it just popped into my mind. You know, there was a time when my dear godbrother had a medical emergency, right? And, you know, we were not sure how serious it was. It seemed pretty serious. The doctors were very concerned. And, I mean, a serious medical emergency. And me and my other godbrother went with him to the emergency room. And while we were there was so much suffering going on in that emergency room. But we were sitting there just laughing and carrying on and having a good time. It was these 2 guys right here. Okay. And
One of the funnest times in my life.
it was so fun. And we were just sitting in the emergency room thinking he might die. We didn't know, but we were having such a good time, right? We were laughing and carrying on, so much so that some of the medical staff were accusing him of being intoxicated, right?
Are you okay, sir?
Yeah.
Sir.
And then another doctor thought you were deranged, right? Because who in their right mind, when they're facing death, would be so joyful, right? I mean, that's abnormal in this world, right? but we're having a great time, and that's because, like Srila Prabhupada said, the bhaktas, the devotees, are fearless and always joyful because they're constantly engaged in service of the lotus feet of the Lord. And so that's a very practical example, just mind-boggling, and then to look around and see all the other people just miserable, right? And here we were having a grand old time. So if we truly realize our eternal position, our constitutional position, our natural position as an eternal spirit soul and a servant of Krishna, then we can actually be fearless. We can also become full of knowledge and bliss because that's our natural state. That's who we are naturally, right? We're not naturally this, fearful, depressed, lonely beings. No, we're full of knowledge and bliss. Another thing that helps one to become fearless is to realize that we are not the controller, right? Krishna is the controller. Sometimes people say, when something like bad happens, they say, oh, that this was against God's plan. But that's not really possible because everything is actually God's plan. Everything is Krishna's plan. It said that not a blade of grass moves without the will of the Lord. Okay, think about that. So if not a blade of grass moves without the will of the Lord, what to speak of, the things that are going on in our lives, right? Because a blade of grass moving, what? It doesn't seem like there's that much significance there, right? So, yeah. And so sometimes what we perceive to be bad karma is actually good karma, right? I think we can all think of a time where this has been demonstrated to us. A really crude example would be like, say you get stuck in traffic on your way to the airport. You end up missing your flight. Now you're upset because you're missing your brother's wedding, right? And you're just totally miserable. You're like, oh my God, I missed my brother's wedding. And then you end up turning on the news and that plane crashed, right? So now you thought you had bad karma. Oh, I'm missing my brother's wedding. I missed my flight. But it turns out, oh no, actually it was good because I would have been on that plane. But now I'm not, right? And that plane crashed. So does anybody have any examples of something like that happening to them? Like where something that you initially thought was bad, but it turned out to be good? And yeah, you initially thought your life was bad, but it turned out good. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one example is, have ever any of you been in a relationship before that didn't work out? Yeah, right? And so when that relationship started, you were like, wow, this is great. This is wonderful, And then maybe when it ended, you were upset. Like for me, my first love was this young man named Scott when I was in high school. And I was just crazy about him. And then we ended up breaking up because I had to move and some stupid stuff happened. And so for years and years and years and years, I just pined away from him. And I was just like, oh gosh, oh my goodness, if only I could be with Scott again, right? Except for now, I look at his life, and he's exactly the same as he was in high school, right? And so if I had gotten what I wanted, I would not have been happy, right? Because he has not really changed at all. And so, all those years I spent pining away from him, for him, only now to realize, wow, I'm really glad that I never got what I wanted because it wouldn't have worked out. Yeah. Does anybody have an experience like that? No? Yeah?
It's funny how deeply transformative the karma is, and ironically non-personal. It's not personal.
Yeah.
But it can be so transformative, and that's such a caustic way of, it's absolutely true, but it's caustic, none of us want to suffer, but ultimately, there is, like you're nicely pointing out, there's an inherent lesson in it.
Yeah.
you know, so it's like, it's just strange.
All right. So let's hear about some devotees who were fearless because of their love of Krishna. First, we have Prahlad Maharaj, right? Prahlad Maharaj, he was fearless because of his love for Krishna. So Prahlad Maharaj was a young boy, and his father, he was a young boy, and he was a great devotee of Krishna ever since he was in the womb, right? He was enlightened in the womb because he had Narada Muni. He heard Narada Muni preaching to his mother while he was in the womb. But his father was this great demon. And his father, he loved his son in one way, but in other ways, he was just so frustrated with the love that his son had for Krishna, right? And so one day his little Prahlad was at school, and he was preaching basically to the other kids at school. And this is a school like the whole society was that they lived in was sort of a demon society, a demon family. And so the whole school was, where you go to learn how to be a good demon, which is ironically not so different from our schools today, right? It was all about how to be successful materially and not much about spirituality, right? And so Prahlad's telling the other students all about Krishna, and some of them are getting into it, and so they're going home and telling their parents, and then their parents are coming back to the teacher saying, "Why are you teaching our children this?" Right? And the teacher's like, "Wait a minute, it's not me. It's not me. It's little Prahlad." So Prahlad's father finds out, and he's very upset about this, and so he starts trying so many different ways to kill his son. He tries, so many different ways, like throwing him off a cliff, I think trying to burn him in a fire. What are some other ones?
Pierce him with deadly weapons.
Pierce him with deadly weapons. Elephant stomping on him, snake.
Boiling oil.
Boiling oil. So many different ways. And in each one of those instances, Prahlad, it was unfazed basically because of his love and faith for Krishna, right? And at the end, what ended up happening? At the end, Krishna came in the form of Lord Nrsimha, and ended up killing his father. And still, Prahlad then was offered by the Lord, a boon. He said, "I will give you a boon." And Prahlad prayed for mercy for his father's soul, right? For his father. And so Prahlad was fearless, completely fearless, even though he was going through so many terrifying things. Nobody's tried to kill me that many times in that many ways. That would be scary. I don't know. Would I be as fearless as Prahlad? Probably not. Maybe. Then we have, let's see. I should probably cut some of these out because I'm getting close to running out of time. But okay, so then we have the gopis leaving their families to go be with Krishna, right? So the gopis, they had families, and the gopis were the village girls that lived in the same village as Krishna, and they loved Krishna because they just loved him, and they left their families to go be with Krishna, even though this would basically is like committing social suicide, right? Because they're running out in the middle of the night to go spend time with Krishna, leaving behind their husbands. That meant their husbands were not going to accept them back, but they did it anyway because they loved Krishna, right? Then we have Parikshit Maharaj, right? Parikshit Maharaj, he found out he became cursed to die in 7 days. And so instead of, being afraid and running around and being afraid or trying to enjoy, what would you do if you knew you were going to die in 7 days? I remember hearing so many answers to this question when I was young. People would always, not always, but I've heard people ask, like, "Oh, if you were going to die tomorrow, what would you do?" And like usually it was some variation of sense enjoyment, right? Like, "Oh, I'd go." Sometimes people would be like, "Oh, I'd go rob a bank," and buy a new car and do all kinds of, or I'd go, find a pretty girl, or whatever, But that's not what Parikshit Maharaj did, right? He ended up going to a sage and wanting to know, what is the duty of a man about to die? Please instruct me. Tell me. What should I do? What should someone who's about to die, what should they know? What should they be doing? And therefore, the Srimad Bhagavatam was narrated. That's where we get that. Then we have our own Srila Prabhupada, right? He was absolutely fearless. I mean, he came here to the United States. He didn't really know anybody. He had the address of somebody that said, like, yeah, you can stay at my house for a few nights, you know. And he had like $8 in rupees that he couldn't spend. And he had a trunk of books, right? And on the way, he had 2 heart attacks on the boat, on the cargo ship. He had 2 heart attacks. That would be scary, right? But still, he persisted. And look at now, he's brought this knowledge to the West and all over the world, right? There's temples all over the world now that are learning how to love and serve Krishna. They're teaching people how to love and serve Krishna. All because of one devotee's fearless attitude, right?
I'm just gonna share one.
Yeah, please.
His name means Abhay Charan, right? Means the fearless one who takes shelter.
Yeah.
My favorite one is when during World War II, when he told the story to his disciples of the bombs going off over Kolkata, and someone had just made prasadam, and he wanted to enjoy prasadam, and these bombs are falling, and all of his friends ran out to the house to go to the bomb shelter, and he stayed in prasadam. Yeah, he's like, if I'm meant to go, Krishna will like me. If I'm not meant to go, but he wasn't going to miss this prasadam.
Yeah, exactly. That's fearless, right? Sometimes I think about that too, like, oh, what would I do if they said, you know, oh, a nuke's gonna hit in, 10 minutes or something. I mean, what would we do? We'd just chant or do kirtan, right? Yeah. We'll do kirtan at the buffet line and stuff our faces. Right? And that sounds a heck of a lot better to me than the hiding and being scared, right? Because if Krishna wants to kill you, right, there's no saving you. And if Krishna wants to save you, there's no killing you. So then we have, this is one of my favorite stories, Haridas Thakur, right? Haridas Thakur, he was one of the associates of Lord Chaitanya there. Okay.
Well,
So he was born in around 1450, he was born in 1450 in a Muslim family, and he converted to Vaishnavism, which is kind of unheard of, right, during that time. And so he was a great devotee of Krishna. He used to chant 192 rounds out loud every day. So if you do the math on that, that's like 22 hours of chanting every day, right? Some of us are like struggling to get our 16 rounds done, right? And so, it says the Supreme Lord Anantadev himself praises Haridas Thakur. Even Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva desire to associate with such devotees as Haridas, and the demigods desire to touch the transcendental body of Haridas. Simply by saying his name Haridas, one will be promoted to Krishna's abode. That's from the Chaitanya Bhagavat. Say it, yeah. Haridas! Okay. So one day, Haridas Thakur, he upset Smarta Brahmana. Smarta Brahmanas were kind of like one of the religious leaders of the Hindus at that time. And they told him he should, because he chanted out loud, they told him he should be chanting silently. And Haridas, he quoted some scripture that defeated that argument, which kind of irritated the Brahmanas, right? But the people in the company, the people in the town, they really relished his company because they could see his devotion and his worship of the holy name, and he was very popular and revered by the townspeople. And so this upset the Muslim Qazi. He was basically the ruler in Navadvip, which is in West Bengal. And so during that time, Haridas, the whole area was ruled by Muslims. And a Muslim converting to Hinduism was actually punishable by death. And so the Qazi told Haridas Thakur to give up his chanting and belief or die. And Haridas said, the Supreme Lord is one. Though his names might be different, the Hindu Shastras and are the Puranas, and the Muslim Shastras is the Quran. Everyone acts as he is inspired by the Lord, as also do I. Some Yavanas, which are outsiders, become Hindus, and some Hindus become Yavanas to worship the Lord. O Maharaj, you can now judge me. So the Qazi again told him, give up your chanting or die. Just follow your own religion, meaning being a Muslim. And Haridas said, even if you cut my body into pieces, I will never give up the chanting of Harinam, the holy name. So the Qazi sentenced him to be whipped in 22 different marketplaces, and until he died. Basically, he sentenced him to be whipped to death in 22 different marketplaces. So this happened. He was taken from marketplace to marketplace, and he was whipped. But by the mercy of the Lord, Haridas Thakur, he didn't feel any of the pain. And his tormentors, the people that were beating him, they were just astonished by this. He prayed for their forgiveness, and he gave forgiveness to the people that were whipping him, kind of like Jesus, right? You know, he prayed for the people, forgive them. They know nothing. Exactly, right? So I actually like to do a whole class around Christmas about the similarities between Haridas Thakur and Jesus. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So the people that were beating him actually started to be agitated because the Qazi had told them, look, you need to beat this guy to death. And he wasn't dying. And they said, look, we're going to get killed because we can't kill you. The Qazi's going to kill us. And so Haridas, he didn't want to cause them distress. So he said, okay, I'm sorry, I will die. Right? And so then he died, right? He died at will. But really, he wasn't actually dead. He was in a very deep state, trance state, very deep meditative state called samadhi. So there was no breathing, no warmth. And so they were going to bury him, but the Qazi said, no, he doesn't deserve to have a burial. Just throw him in the river, right? So they threw him in the Ganges, which most of you know, like that's actually very auspicious. So they threw him in the Ganges, and sometime later he rose from the dead, and he began chanting again. And some of the Muslims that had seen this whole thing happen, they saw him and they realized, oh my gosh, this is a holy man. Like, what did we do? Like, this is so terrible. And they begged his forgiveness, which he gave them. And so, I mean, if that's not fearless, I don't know what is, right? And that's because of his love and service to Krishna that he was able to be that fearless. So we also have some more modern stories. So there's some stories about the devotees in the early days, like I think in the 80s. So it's not like the early days of ISKCON, but the early days of ISKCON starting in the Soviet Union. And so during that time, they really couldn't have meetings or distribute books or anything without being harassed and arrested by the KGB. And so there's so many stories of like the devotees were having a meeting, sort of just like this one. You know, there was kirtan, there was prasad, they were talking. And all of a sudden the KGB bursts in, right? And so the devotees are scrambling around trying to hide the books, hide the typewriters and other things. They weren't even allowed to have typewriters. I mean, you know, really dark times. And then the KGB would take down all their names. And one account I was reading, it was someone that was basically new. I think it was like his first time he had come to a program like this. And then the KGB burst in and they took down everybody's names. And so one of the other devotees said, oh, did they take down your name? And he said, yeah. And he said, oh, good. Now you're a real Hare Krishna devotee, right? And so later the devotees, they began typing and printing copies of the Bhagavad Gita and then binding them by hand and distributing them. And they were arrested again and again for this. Their families were threatened. And they made sure that like everybody in the group knew how to do each and every step of how to, you know, make those Bhagavad Gitas. because they didn't know who was going to be arrested and who would not even, who wouldn't be there to do their part of the job, so everybody knew how to do it all. So one devotee was thrown in prison for years, and he was only eating salted bread because that was the only vegetarian option really. He said, the only thing he could eat that was vegetarian was basically bread. And then he would salt it in order to make his mouth salivate enough for him to be able to swallow it, right? And he did that for, I think it was 2 years, something, 2 years, yeah. During this, so also he even made japa beads out of bread. He made little balls of bread and made beads so he could chant, right? I know, that's great, that's great. And during this time, he was preaching to the other prisoners. He was also sent to a psychiatric hospital where they were forcibly injecting devotees with psychiatric drugs. He was repeatedly beaten and tortured, but still he was chanting his rounds, right? Eventually he was sent to hard labor in Siberia for the rest of his 2-year sentence. And due to the beatings, he had lasting vision problems. He said he's half blind, and he has chronic spinal pain due to these beatings that he would get. But the devotees were finally able to get ISKCON formally registered with the Soviet government, and in around 1989, a group of 50 devotees were allowed to go make the pilgrimage and go to India. And this was just a few months before that. Most of those devotees that went on that pilgrimage were being tortured by the KGB, right? So those devotees remained fearless and steadfast, and look what they were able to achieve. And now Krishna consciousness is spreading like wildfire in Russia. I mean, it's amazing. Okay, so how do I become fearless? How do I surrender to Krishna? So there's a really great song, Bajo Re Mana. So the first line is Bajo Re Mana Shri Nandana Abhaya Charanara Vindare. So that translates as, my dear mind, please worship the lotus feet of the son of Nanda, Krishna, which makes one fearless. So to a devotee who prays in this way, Krishna awards fearlessness. And Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. So how do we surrender? What do we do? How do we do that? So we need to practice. We've been in this material world for billions of lifetimes, and it's hard to break free from that illusion, from Maya. So we need to spend our time developing this quality of surrender, right? Now, it's said surrender could happen in just a second, right? But for most people, it's a process, and it takes some time. So there's that old saying, if you take one step towards Krishna, he's going to take 1,000 towards you. So if we just show our honest desire to get to know Krishna, he'll help us. He will show us how to come to him. I'm okay, thank you. What is it? No, I'm okay. Thank you.
If you ask me,
Might be a bomb going off.
Yeah. All right. So the Bhagavad Gita says, to those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. That's what Krishna says. He also says, always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this, because you are my very dear friend. Look at that. Krishna, God himself, is saying you are his very dear friend. And you too. And you too. All of you. All of us. Me too. So, yeah. And then 1866, abandon all varieties of religion. Just surrender it to me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. So here's some things we can do to conquer fear. We can chant Krishna's holy names, right? We can chant the Bhagavatam, 2nd canto, says, O king, Constant chanting of the holy name of the Lord after the ways of the great authorities is the doubtless and fearless way of success for all, including those who are free from all material desires, those who are desirous of all material enjoyment, and also those who are self-satisfied by dint of transcendental knowledge. So that covers about everybody. Right. Yeah.
Rajahure mana Shri Nanda Nandana Bhaya Charanara Vindare Durabhamana Vandanam Satsange Tave Baba Sindure.
Yeah.
Or mine. Just worship the lotus feet of the son of Nanda, which make one fearless.
Yeah.
Having obtained this rare human birth, cross over the ocean of material existence by the association of the same person.
Yeah. Yes. Actually quoted that while you were in there. But that's okay. It's good to hear it again. Okay. So yeah, we can chant. We can read and hear the Srimad Bhagavatam. So simply by giving oral reception to this Vedic literature, the feeling for loving devotional service to Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, sprouts up and at once to extinguish the fire of lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness. So please join us for our classes. We have them in person. You can watch them online. I mean, we do a Srimad Bhagavatam class every morning except for Monday, right? And you can watch it online or you can come to it every morning, 8 o'clock, except Monday. If you come, you'll have to do chores. So then we can meditate on Krishna's form, right? The Bhagavatam also says, "My dear Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, you are the Supreme Soul. If one meditates upon your transcendental body, you naturally protect him from all sources of fear, even the imminent danger of death." So we can meditate on the deity at home, in the temple. We can also just meditate on the name, right? Okay, so what else can we do? We can serve the devotees. Serve, advanced devotees of the Lord, like Srila Prabhupada, or if you have a spiritual master, right? The Srimad Bhagavatam says, "The path followed by pure devotees who are well behaved and fully endowed with the best qualifications. It is certainly the most auspicious path in this material world. It is free from fear and is authorized by the Shastras, the scriptures." So these are the things that we can do to conquer fear. So all of those things, the best one, the method of realization for the sage is to chant the holy names. I chanted and how it dispelled my fear. And it's kind of silly, but and I'm sure some of you know this, but so when I first, I started reading books, I don't know, like Krishna conscious literatures, I started reading, gosh, probably 7-8 years ago, maybe now. But I was sort of reluctant to start chanting. I don't know why. I just was, like I knew that's, what all the books were saying I should do. But I was just reluctant. I was being stubborn. I don't know. And so this one night I wasn't able to sleep. And so I decided I wanted to walk out into the desert. And I lived on the east side. It wasn't that far to just go to the open desert. So I started walking east. And I'm walking. It's like in the middle of the night and it's all dark. And soon I'm all alone, and it's really dark. And I start remembering this documentary that I had watched about big cats and how they actually stalk and hunt prey in cities right around people, and people don't even know, right? Like a tiger or something will be stalking like a rabbit in a city, and people won't even have a clue. And in the documentary, they're showing like infrared cameras of this happening, and people are like walking by, going about their business, and there's a big cat hunting, a small animal. People don't even know. So I start thinking, oh my gosh, we have big cats here. We've got mountain lions, got jaguars, oh, I'm in the middle of the desert. It's all dark. There's nobody here. Oh man, I start freaking myself out pretty bad, which is really dumb because it's just all in my head, I'm scared now. I'm totally terrified that some big cat is going to get me. So I'm like, I better go home. but I'm pretty far. I was pretty far from my house by this time. So I start like running back to my house, and I think, you know what? Maybe I should start chanting that mantra. You know, maybe I should start chanting that mantra. And so I did. I started chanting the Hare Krishna mantra all the way home. And I ran the whole way home and started just chanting the mantra over and over and over again. And guess what? A big cat did not get me. So I don't think that was a coincidence, right? So, and I've chanted the Maha Mantra every day since that day. So, and honestly, it really has made me maybe not 100% fearless, but mostly fearless. And one more thing is about the spiders, right? I used to be terrified of spiders. Also, I hated them. I would scream and carry on. If one jumped on me, I'd be like, "Oh my God!" And like now, I'm totally fine with spiders. Like I'll pick them up and throw them outside or whatever. Even black widows, which is like pretty dumb, but I'll catch them with a cup and like throw them outside. I don't know what happened other than one, recognizing that they're spirit souls also. That really helped me understand, like, look, they're just spirit souls going about, living out their karma, and I don't want to hurt them, and they're not trying to hurt me either, and so for whatever reason, I'm not afraid of spiders anymore. So I think we'll end there. Yes, Kirtanya Shwargarangadas.
You're a very fearless person. I can attest to that. I feel fearless about a lot of things, especially death. Doesn't bother me. And we talk about the hospital. I was, fun, jolly. One of the funnest nights of my life that now. I don't know. It's just so fun.
It was so fun.
It was like a weird, fun thing Krishna gave us. I was a lot of pain, but anyhow, I do have fear though. I feel myself feeling fear. I don't even know what a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
The feeling is there. Anxiety. Or situation. It's irrational fear.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know why this situation, if this happens to someone else, that scares me. I get like anxious about it. And, it's like death. Someone told me I'm going to die. I like let that scenario out so much.
Yeah.
But, that fear of like having to deal with a shitty situation. Like, that fear, is bad, it's like, how do you deal with that? How do you fix that?
I mean, we have to just really understand that for whatever reason, it's our karma to deal with that crappy situation, and that we'll get through it. And if we're surrendered to Krishna, just know that he's in control. It's not.
It feels like, I'm going hard, I'm doing all the rounds, I'm doing the deity worship, reading the books, doing the Sankirtan, trying to stay out of my ass, like trying to get my 110%, of this Krishna consciousness. And still sometimes we feel like, some type of dread that we don't understand.
Yeah.
Well, mostly it's bliss, mostly it's happy, like they're not going to deny the change, but still, that's there, it's like it's more exposed than ever because otherwise we just cover it over with drugs or with, different things. But now that, you have devotee and then you minimize your, all the types of sense gratification. Now you're really forced to face it.
Yeah. Well, I think part of it, at least for me, is that, I have, being afraid of aspects of life. And so sometimes I'm anxious for literally no discernible reason, right?
Could it be your false ego? All the things that are helping you become fearless.
Yeah.
The devotional practices are the very thing that are killing your false ego.
Yeah.
So it's in a state of fearfulness because it knows it's gonna die.
False ego saying, don't
You keep up
kill
this
me.
practice, yeah.
I always feel like it's like prices of living are so you disintegrated, like, that's what I perceive my false ego being, like, just getting disintegrated, like, ashram, like, dealing with all of different people and characters.
Yeah. I've heard someone use the analogy, it's like a rock tumbler, right? And like we're just getting all our sharp edges, smoothed out. And it feels like that sometimes, like a rock tumbler. All right, is there any other comments or questions or anything? Yeah, Omar.
Do you think like fear has its place? Like there's something that we should be afraid of, or like we should throw fear all like out?
Yeah, I think we should be afraid of Vaishnava Aparad making offenses for sure, and we should be afraid of the material energy. I think that people are not as afraid of the material energy as they should be. Yeah, because it's very strong. It can derail us. I mean, we've seen so many devotees that were so such good devotees, and still, they were bewildered and had to go through some hardship because of that. Yeah, Hugo.
I'm reminded, one of my favorite quotes from Srila Prabhupada at one point, he told his disciples, the problem with you Westerners is that you're not afraid enough of the material energy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because there's some big time examples. Give us a big time example of a really great devotee that got sidetracked by Maya. No, a bigger devotee.
Ajamil.
Yeah, exactly. Ajamil, some others. Come on.
The guy who looked at the deer, what was his name?
Yeah. Yeah, Maharaj Ambarish, yeah. Bart Maharaj, yeah, Bart Maharaj. Yeah.
So many examples. Guru
Yeah.
Even the Bhagavad
Is
Gita.
it wrong to think about fear in a way of a teacher?
No, I think there can be a great teacher. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's. I mean, think about when you're a little kid, right? And your mom tells you don't touch that hot stove, but you don't listen, right? And then you touch it, and then it hurts. And the next time you're afraid to touch it, right? Because it burns you. So yeah, fear is a great teacher because it teaches us, what things that we should be wary of, and maybe what not to do again. I mean, that's why we have fear, right? It's good for survival, right? Because if I just walk into the street and not, I'm not afraid of the cars, and I get hit by a car, like that's bad for survival, right? But if
In the pretense of what we've been speaking about, we're talking about how to mitigate fear. And when I'm looking at my life and I'm seeing things come up that scare the living shit out of me, I'm like, oh, interesting. I need to put some focus here and understand why.
yeah,
And it's almost like, for me, I look at it as a clue. Now, for whatever reason, irrationally, the arachnids, I just can't get. I want to get where you are, but
Yeah.
it's not happening at this point.
yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, I have to have something to work on, right?
Yeah,
It's okay to kill a spider.
Yeah.
Same people kill snakes and scorpions.
yeah,
But anyhow, I want to say this because I want to say that also in the sense that fear also is the way of the warrior is that we'll feel a feeling. We're not going to avoid the feeling of fear in the sense that feeling of the heart racing, whatever. You don't want to go through a circumstance, but the way the fear or the bhaya is how we act according to that feeling. Actually, fear and excitement are the same thing, right? But the fear is the way the mind is interpreting that chemical reaction in the body. So Krishna consciousness, becoming fearless means that we don't allow our emotions to control our activities.
Yeah.
That's fearlessness. The intelligence is overwhelmed. Like this guy who was just trying to beat up agitation. I didn't know he looked like he had some type of knife or something on his side, but it just was like the fearless reaction came out.
Yeah.
Bro, it was badass.
So you got to attack him. You
That is
gotta-
on our side.
What do you do if someone's going to hurt your boat? You have to be careful.
Yeah.
I think of Mother Ladini that died in Liberia, tens of thousands of people left the country and the devotees stayed there in the midst of all that civil war, and then they lined him up to shoot them, and she ran forward and accosted the guy with the machine gun and said, "How dare you harm a devotee, kill me first."
That's why I screamed when I attacked that guy, Harnell, who was like Versace.
How dare you touch the devotee?
Yeah, here you go.
Something that was coming to mind. What's her name, by the way?
Jody?
Jody. Something that was coming, that like clicked for me when you were saying about fear as a teacher. What clicked for me is that like my experience of fear has the function of pushing me into safety.
Mhm.
And that's valuable. And if I don't have a proper conception of like what's safe, then I don't have anywhere to turn to. But if I have a proper conception of what's safe, fear can push me into that.
Mhm.
Or if I don't have a conception, I can learn. And so it's like, because then like the stove, it's like stay away from the stove.
Yeah.
That's safety. If I don't touch the stove, I won't get burned. And similarly, like in a more metaphysical and cosmic sense, like fearing the material energy, because it tossles me around and disorients me and just like causes me so much suffering when I get attached to it. If I understand what safety is, like, oh, if I stay, in the association of spiritualism, if I stay with practices that keep me connected to that eternality of the soul, then that I don't need to worry about that. And so that was clicking for me. That like fear is valuable because it teaches me to reconnect with safety more and more. My conception of safety is proper, like spiritual life and like connecting with the soul, then that's a very good thing.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's a really great point. I mean, yeah, that's why we have fear, right? It's
Powerful.
So I'm
Yeah.
appreciating you because you like sparked that within me. And
Conception of safety.
Yeah.
That's- Especially when you're looking at the spiritual aspect, and like you said, when you're lost, which I've been lost, the concept of safety it's not to be found.
Right.
It's gone. It's not there. There's no compass.
Mhm.
But fear can be the pathway to spirit. And so while I don't want to spend my time in that space of fear, which is void of God and spirit, I want to spend my time there. It was the pathway that I had to take to get me here.
absolutely.
So how powerful is that?
Yeah. And that's, most people, when they are really scared, I mean, right, there's that saying, there's no atheists in a foxhole, right? That's because they're scared, right? And they're like, all I have is God, right? There's nothing else, right? So fear is a very powerful motivator for spiritual life for a lot of people. I mean, yeah.
I even think of, like, I've met a number of devotees. It's like an archetype where like they become a devotee, they move into the temple, they're chanting 16 rounds, reading the books, like they're deeply engaged in the practice. And then for one reason or another, something comes up, maybe they move, something happens in the family or whatever it might be, but they slowly dwindle away from spiritual life.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, they get a rundown job, maybe they have a partner and it's kind of like not such a healthy relationship, maybe they get into whatever it is, and they might do like a multi-year detour from spiritual life. And then they come back and I meet them as the devotee they are now, and they're like, yeah, I really needed that. Because now I'm not going anywhere. I
Right.
experienced it all. I didn't take it serious enough before, but I've experienced that. I went out, I had a girlfriend, it was horrible, it was toxic, and
Yeah.
this job, it was completely run down, and I was suffering, and the drug and everything, and now I'm back. I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah,
It's
sometimes you just gotta get
I've met
beat
many
up.
devotees like that, where it's like, like, I hope it doesn't happen to anyone, but for some people, I guess they just need to be kind of like smacked a little bit before it's like, oh, now I'm ready. I'm ready to settle into this spiritual absorption.
Yeah, it's that, get beat up by that material energy a little bit more. It's kind of like drug addiction, right? Like sometimes someone will get clean, they'll get sober, but they end up relapsing, right? Because they kind of have this idea like, oh, it wasn't so bad, right? And then they end up relapsing and they realize, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, it was so bad, and sometimes people have to go through that a few times in order to finally realize, oh, you know what? Maybe I better not go back out and do that again, So, yeah, very good. All right, let's stop the recording so I can not sit here anymore.
Yeah,